Hello, hello, and welcome to Surrender, Soul Chats, and Guided Meditations, Season 2, 1111, which is all about new beginnings. I am your host, Frandasia Williams. Those who know my soul call me Franny, and I'm the owner and founder of Guided Surrender, which is a lifestyle and wellness company that is based in releasing resistance, fear-based resistance that keeps us and blocks us from our manifestations, our spiritual, mental, and physical healing. So if you are on a healing journey, you're in the right place. This is a home for healing, and we are so happy to have you here. And this is my co-host, who I'll let introduce herself.
Hello, Queens. My name is Nicole Bouthier. I am the founder of Female Makers. Please feel free to follow my journey for a collective of female entrepreneurs and micro female creators at femalemakers.org.
And enjoy this episode.
People, when you live in Vegas for a long time, you don't even go out unless you're at a table. Like, I'm not 20. I'm not going to stand for hours in these heels that I don't even want to be in to begin with. Let's start there. Let's start there. Yeah. That's how I feel. Like the way that people like book first class flights and they only fly first class because they can't, be in anything but first class. That's how I feel about when I go to clubs. Like, don't invite me to a club unless it's at a table. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to go.
Well, I never really got into club culture, so I don't really have that experience, but I do want to know, like, the people who feel that way about first class, what is the difference?
Well, I can speak on this now.
You can. That's what I'm asking you. I wasn't talking to myself. I don't know. I've always had the perspective that we're all going the same place. So
well, let's just say this. I booked another trip that's going to happen in December, and it's like a couple's trip with my partner and then his sister and, her husband. And we booked first class going and coming back. There's this really famous, it's a episode from Steve Harvey. It's a really famous episode. And he talks about this mentality of first class. He goes, pick a trip, any trip you go on, and just book first class for it, just so that you could try it. He goes, just book it there. Don't book it back, or vice versa, okay? And so he goes, you go and you sit in first class, you have your little experience. And he goes, and when you get back on your plane to go back home and you go to your other seat, he goes, you have to walk past first class. And he goes, from that moment on, you will walk past what is now your like minimum recommendation, like minimum have to be in first class. So let me just tell you about the level of that has unlocked a door for me. When I did the first class not too long ago, I was clearly taking full advantage of whatever was involved in the first class. So anything they were like giving out, doing, I may not be hungry now, but you can throw it in my Michael Kors and I will somehow eat it later. So just find its way to me. First of all, there's a lounge for the airline that I flew that you can like chip, like basically almost like an Amex lounge, but it was Alaska lounge that you can, if you're first class or you're a member, you can go to before your flights, so that you can basically just be hidden from the regular public. Already, I didn't even care what was there. Could have been an empty room. I would have went. So I go, and it opens at 4:30, and I'm in there, and they have like the cutest like build your own parfait bar, and it had like every topping you could think of. They had every bagel in life with every kind of cream cheese. They had 4 like the highest tech espresso machines I've ever seen. I don't even know how to use those, and I love coffee. I'm literally standing in front of this touch machine and I'm like, Americano, or like I'm not sure. So I'm like trying to act like I've never not done this. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I do this all the time. Like, and they have these like Google pods that you could sit in, where it's like basically a huge seat, like a huge chair, and then like a little shader goes over you. So you're basically hidden from the world. So I had my little studio apartment in this little Google pod. I chilled there for 2 hours. And then I went and caught my flight. When I got onto the flight, it was just, the seats felt like little beds. They were just a beautiful time. Like if you wanted to cozy up on a chair in your living room, that's what it felt like. The snacks were full size. They were addressing me by my last name. It truly was, you're paying for the experience, but also, especially if you're somebody who's not like really tiny, sometimes airplanes can feel like extremely claustrophobic. Even if you are tiny, they can feel like, so here's the chair in front of you, here's your little tray here. You could just feel like very tight. Before, I never knew that I wanted first class, because I was just like, it's fine, like I'm catching flights, I don't care, it's a flight, like, you know, you're not really, almost similar to when people book a hotel that's not, I guess, really, really nice, and they're just like, well, I'm not going to be in the hotel the whole time. That's how I associated flights. Like, I was just like, I'm only going to be on the flight for a few hours, like, who cares? But the way that I was treated, and just the comfortability of not feeling like a lot of people were around me. And I actually fell asleep on this flight. And when I tell you, I am like the queen of not being able to fall asleep in a plane, in a car. I can't sleep in things. Like, I have to be in a bed. That's how I knew, just going forward, that's how I want to fly. If I can fly first class, I'm just going to, and that's just how that's going to work.
I love that for you. Beyond. And I love that for you, especially because we did just have, not even 2 months ago, a conversation about a particular shopping experience.
Oh, yes.
We've evolved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. You know what? Go ahead. I'll let you
say, I just love the Steve Harvey like association to it, where he's just like, you know, every day that you walk by that, when you take a flight, you're going to know that like this is where you want to be, instead of going to the other seats. And it's not even necessarily about first class. It can apply to anything. It's really about when you level up a certain thing in your life, whether it's materialistic or spiritually or whatever. Let's say you now upgraded to a better gym because you have more access to things that will help you stay on track to work out. You find a way to make the difference of where that money is coming from now. Mm-hmm. You somehow will find a way to make sure that you have that set of funds available to have that in your life, as if it's part of your grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. You find a way for it.
Yeah. Do you think that it was also supportive that the first ticket was like assumed for you? Like, oh,
absolutely,
this is tripping. You're flying.
It forced me. Like, before, I probably would have been like, oh, it's whatever. Like, if I do, that'd be cool. If not, like, I'm not going to worry about it. Because it was assumed for me. Now it's just like, it feels very like, why have I not been carrying an iPhone for 20 years? Why was I ever not having an iPhone and an iPad and an iPad? You know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm speaking in a materialistic form, but when something is assumed for you, and then it puts you in a different environment. Somebody said, this is what made it so brilliant for me. Somebody said, it was some tech kid said that he only buys first class flights, even though he knows they're expensive. And he said the reason is when he started his small business, he would go out of his pocket to make sure he flew first class, to create access to conversations with people who fly first class. It wasn't about the first class experience for the bouginess. It was about the fact that he wanted access to people that are only flying first class, to have more exposure of conversations as he builds his business for more connections.
And you know, I have a thing with I have a phobia of public bathrooms, and I just feel like the bathroom up there would be cleaner.
It was oddly cleaner. I never go to that bathroom up there, because obviously I'm usually like mid or like back, right? So it's just like you go to the closest whatever, right? It was the same setup, like the bathroom was the same, but there was like extra things in there. Like there was just like, they found a way to make it feel like a little bit, just a smidgy better. It's a placebo effect for sure, but it didn't matter because I was like eating it up.
You have inspired me.
I was like, lotion, soap, I will take it all. Do you have a mini lotion? Because I want it. Yeah, like that.
I think I will think about it differently the next time I get on a plane, which will be 2022, because I'm vowing that I'm traveling again 2022. Vowing. It has to
whatever the first flight is, Franny, just do it.
I will. And
make it first class. I'm telling you, you will not regret it.
And it's not just the flight, the ticket thing for me. So every time I'm at the airport, I wish that I had a nicer bag, like a nicer tote. And I have tons of totes. I'm someone who is consistently carrying bags, but it never fails when I'm at the airport. I always hate that I have like a shitty bag. Like I just brought like a cheap tote. I always wish I had like a nice, like leather or something type of tote to carry my things in. And like I still have my carry on, but like having like a nice purse or like a nice size tote that counts. And there's this one particular bag that I have just had my eye on. And I was like, I think you should get that for yourself, because every time I fly, that's the bag I think of. And I'm like, and when I see other people in the airport and they have a similar bag, I'm like, oh, that bag is just so nice to me. I don't know why the bag is so nice to me.
If the bag hasn't left your mind.
Right. Right. And I'm notorious for not buying like name brand. And I don't really shop. People who know me, and like, I don't shop. I actually really don't like shopping, even online shopping. I just don't do it. I don't know why I don't do it. I just never started. And I felt
interesting. Let's go back to that after this conversation, because let's just go back to that, because I have a thought on that.
I want to hear.
My thought is like the way that the perception that you give me, is very like you're very verbal with how you showcase your boundaries and what you accept and don't accept. That also includes how you take care of your lifestyle. And a lot of those times are like on a very higher level. And you don't make excuses for when you want to spend money, even if it's more than. So sometimes when which I do know this, that you don't really shop and you don't do these things, it's so funny to me because it doesn't commute with how I'm like you perceive to me. Like in my mind, I'm like, I don't know why she's not like in this mansion with this blah 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 and all these brand things. And not because you're not humble, but it's just the way that you carry yourself, like how I see you carry yourself is on this really high level of it's just the perception of how you carry yourself. And so it's so funny that you're not really like that in real life. You're truly like super humble, and like those things don't really matter to you. So you don't really invest a lot of energy into, not because you can't get those things if you wanted to, it's more so that you don't really care to invest time into actually sitting down and ordering those things for yourself.
No, yeah. And if I had, I'm more of an experienced person, like an experience merits the spending. Like if I had to choose how I'm going to spend my money, I've always chosen experience. Even when I solo traveled, I was like, I will sleep at the cheapest place I can sleep in. So I can go as many places as I want to go. I've always been someone who knew where I was always okay letting go of one thing so I could have the maximum of another thing. I remember when I left New York, like one of the main things was I just wanted more in my day-to-day life that I couldn't get, that I didn't have access to there. Like living on my own, having like I have a pretty nice sized place to myself now. And that was important to me. Having like a yoga studio in my house, that was important to me. Like the things that were important to me, I got. And then there's other things that, you're right, just like super aren't important to me. And it's so funny because even like my dad is like that. He's like, his idea of me being successful, me being happy, was me having the things that I didn't feel like made me happy. If anything, I always felt like they held me down, because I was like, now I have a responsibility to take care of things when I would prefer not have those responsibilities and just be able to be free and go.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel, this is such a good question, it unlocked this part of me. Do you feel that has anything to do with you? Because we have conversations a lot about relationships. You and I have a lot of relationship conversations. And the reason that is like Nicole, without a relationship, when she was on her own in her own apartment and doing all of those things, versus like in a fully committed relationship, it's totally, there's things that like I like very similar to what you're talking about. So like I would pay more for experience and then like be like, because I wanted to maximize my experience. And I was like that for years. We even had this conversation about brands recently. We had this like conversation that I would talk myself out of certain brands or things because I felt like I really couldn't afford it. But the true reality of it was it came down to, because Franny does this thing where she's like, that's not what it really means. What does it really mean? And then you're like, okay, I have trauma. Anyways, we're not getting into that today because I don't have Haven't had enough coffee. But the reason I ask this is like, do you think that differs off of you, you know, solely taking care of yourself in just your environment versus like maybe what it would be like if you're in a relationship? And the reason I ask that is because my boyfriend and I are very like night and day. For like a long time, he was very much so into like certain brands and things like that, and he's pulled that out of me. Not because not because I not because it's something I need, but it's because my mind, I was always like, oh, I'm going to pay for the experience. I'm going to do this and that. And I felt like I had to give up one to get another versus now I'm just like, I'm getting to that level that you've also unlocked for me too, where it's just like, there's no limitation to what you can have access to. Right. Like if you're starting to like bags, but you never liked bags before, you were never a bag girl, and all of a sudden you want a Louis Vuitton, then you just want a Louis Vuitton, and that's just the bag that you want. And maybe you just like bags. Like there's not like a box that you have to be set into. And there's a lot of times that I felt like single or in a relationship, I had to put myself into in order to be responsible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
In order to like, let's say, in order to keep your savings account at a number that you feel comfortable, in order to, like, what is that line? Everybody has like a certain line that clearly as adults we keep to ourselves, but also as women, like, what's that line for you?
Yeah, you're right. I do think that having a world that is solely run by me and supported by me, my decisions are catering to that 100%. So I think you're right completely in the sense of there were times where I did have to make a choice between like the luxury of it and the experience of it. I was young, I was traveling, I was just out of grad school, yeah. And even now it's like I'm only one person. Like when you have two people doing something, sometimes you can expand, like you go do this and you go do this, right. And it's right. Me. So I have to be a little bit more, like I plan things differently for myself so that I can experience them. And for instance, if we're talking about a trip, if I'm solo traveling, I'm planning it different than I would plan it with a friend because I'm doing a good portion of it solo. And I have to think about my safety, and I have to think about just like the things that I'm going to do, the access that I'll have to them. I think I do plan things differently. And it's so funny because I traveled to Italy and I went through the whole country by myself. And I said, I loved that trip so much. And I said that I was happy I didn't take anyone because I wanted to experience that first session by myself. But if I went back again, I would 100% want to experience it with another person, whether it be my sister or a friend or a partner, because it would be a different experience. But to have the same experience again, just me, I'd probably go to a different country. If I think of the little girl Franny, my aunt told me this. She was like, basically my aunt told me that ever since I was a little girl, I've been manifesting. Now, of course I didn't remember it because we don't remember ourselves. We don't remember our true selves, but your childhood self is your truest self. And she was like, ever since you were a little girl, you would tell me these things about yourself. And she said, I would just sit there in awe of you because where did those words come from? You were so small. And she's like, you've always had such a small body, but this big voice and this big mind. And it really set me free in a way because I was like, wow, so I've known ever since I was a little girl who I would be. And I'm 100% living up to that. Now, does it look different than I thought? Yes. The timeline was different? Yes. That little girl is still very proud of me. And so is yours. And so if you really think, instead of measuring yourself to, what you're seeing on Instagram, what your friends are doing, or, what you wish you were doing, the little girl in you, would she be proud of you? Like, have a conversation with her.
I could cry right now thinking about it because it's just imagining every woman that we know thinking about their little girl inside of them is, it's just a really beautiful, powerful statement that Franny just said. And if anybody has a very similar journey, you think about those things when you're young and things that you dreamed about, and you're doing such a good job.
Yeah.
Such a good job.
I mean, she's probably looking at, how you used to look at people when you were little and be like,
you're like, wow, look at all this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. You have. And I mean, the little girl in you is looking at you saying that you're so beautiful. Oh my gosh, this is where you live. whoa, these are your friends? Oh, you got to go where? You got to do that thing? That's your job? Oh my gosh, you're so cool.
Also comment below on our post if you're crying right now.
Yeah, man, spend some time with that little girl because she holds the key to your heart. We think it's everyone else. It's her.
Mm,
She holds the key to your heart. She's actually who you're trying to prove yourself to. You just don't know.
mm,
It's a
I
little,
love it.
and she's already proud of you. She's already rooting for you. She just couldn't wait for the day that you came back and told her that everything that her heart desired she would have one day. It looks different, but
Absolutely.
ultimately the number one thing that she desired was that she was happy, that you would be happy. And if that's something that you can say, or if you can even say, I'm getting there, then you are
And
doing
even if you aren't there, it's
it.
okay, because that's what this journey is about, is exploring more about how to get you there. And a big part of that is what me and Franny were talking about today, which is prioritizing your self-love and making sure that your cup is filled first.
Yeah.
And that cup looks different than Franny's cup. It looks different than my cup. And you have to explore what goes in your cup.
It's
And
okay. Yeah. It's okay not to be okay. And I think part of self-care is being able to say when you're not okay and what you need to be okay in that moment. You don't always have to have the answer for how to solve your own hunger, your own thirst. You don't always have those answers. But if you can say, I'm not okay, that's your first step for being like, I'm, even if you don't realize it, you're subconsciously telling yourself, I'm going to get okay. I'm not okay right now. I'm going to get okay. And it comes next. It does. And so just be with yourself, even in that moment of, I'm not okay. Because we spend so long trying to convince ourselves that we are okay in the moments that we're not okay. So we never really let ourselves just feel not okay. So what if you need to cry all day? That's your business. Worry about yourself. What you needed to do today was cry. What you needed to do today was be a little self-loathing. So what? You didn't bother anybody. You're doing your own thing. Cuddled up with your body pillow, talking to yourself. Sometimes it's at work, those moments where you're at work just like crying underneath a computer, crying behind the desk, or like in between clients or
it
customers.
happens. It
Crying.
happens. And it's okay. It's
Okay.
definitely fine. And we're just very grateful for everyone's time and just the support, everybody supporting, this journey, and just kind of getting a peek into the conversations that still happen. And we're so excited to hear any of the feedback. Please follow us on our journey. You can follow me at Female Makers on Instagram and femalemakers.org, because I'm official now.
Her website just launched. Please do go check it out and see if anything there interests you for your upcoming journey as a female entrepreneur. And connect with Nicole if you have some interest in your journey through entrepreneurship. She's a visionary. And if you are working on your vision on how to get started and how to connect yourself to the right places, the right people, and the right time, she's really great with connection. If I had one word for what she does, it's connection. She connects the dots. She's the connector of dots. So you're not exempt. What'd you say?
Touched my heart.
Heart touched. She's a connector of hearts. So let her connect your heart with others and the things that you most desire. And you can give me a follow at Guided Surrender, which is also guidedsurrender.com, and Guided Surrender on Facebook and Twitter. If you are interested in furthering your healing journey through soul chats and a guided healing session where we basically have an intuitive reading to discover your resistance and work through action plans to release it. And a lot of that is meeting your inner child. So what we did today, we talked about talking to your inner child. If you'd like to do that with a little bit of guidance, reach out to me and set up a session, and I'd be happy to meet you and to become a part of your journey. And yes, thank you all for joining us for another episode. All right. This episode will continue into the next episode. So we are excited to see you back for another round of Surrender Soul Chats and Guided Meditations, Season 2, 11:11, New Beginnings. See you next time. Mwah.